how's it going? So, I know it's a little echoey whenever I'm recording here. I'm coming to you from all of the worst places for me to record, apparently. Uh, Not by choice. Well, I guess tonight, both of them, I guess, were by choice in a certain way, but I'm not meaning for the audio quality to be not as good as what it normally is, like whenever I record from my basement. But I'm currently recording from another room in the house, kind of out of convenience, make it a little bit easier. And I'm doing a midweek recording instead of doing my usual weekend recordings. And so things have just been busy, which is wonderful in a lot of ways. But also this, there was a freak trimming accident, and then it couldn't be saved, and it just now I look like a turtle child thing. I don't know. I don't like my face. I almost want to blur it out, but I'm not gonna do all that. Not for this, anyways, because that would be a little ridiculous. So we're still gonna do the Jonathan and David relationship, but I had almost contemplated doing something else because there has been something interesting going on in the world where I was like, maybe I should speak on that, but I probably will here in a couple of weeks. I want to get through this character study thing that we've been doing. So last week we talked about the fall of Saul. This week we get to talk about the friendship of Jonathan and David, and we will end on the lament of David mourning his friend and his father-in-law, the former king of Israel, Saul. So it's such an interesting relationship because the first time that Jonathan meets David is at the battle with Goliath, and so we see that that kind of start there because Jonathan's like, who's that guy? And everybody's asking that, which is interesting because even Saul asks, in a sense, like, who's that guy? And it's just like, don't you know your own harp player? But it's definitely this is honestly one of my favorite favorite guys in the Bible, because of the example they set. So while we're going through this, I want you to be thinking about a friend that you're really close to. Okay, so we're going to go to 1 Samuel 18 is where we're going to start this evening. And this is immediately after Jonathan and Saul find out who David is. So it says in 1 Samuel 18:1, as soon as he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. You know that best friend you got, that you guys are inseparable, you guys want to just hang out and just have fun and be there for each other through thick and thin and all of that stuff. That's the relationship they have. It's very much a healthy relationship, as opposed to the unhealthy relationship that Saul and David have. Although Saul and Jonathan also have an unhealthy relationship, and we're going to see some of that too while we're doing this study. So it is here at the end of the battle. We kind of hit on this a little bit, just because we made it through 18, so we're revisiting this a little bit. But David doesn't go back home after killing Goliath, so that's interesting. David's living at the castle. David is now, I guess, under Saul's watch, keep, whatever, employment. So, and that happens in verse 2, because it says, and Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. However, I want you to hold on to that thought, just because of what's coming. So, Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his sword, and his bow, and his belt. Jonathan literally is like, here, take all this stuff off of my back. I'm sure we all have people that we would, give the shirt off of our backs for. I can think of a good handful that I would definitely willingly do that. But I'm also like, I really personally want to be that guy that's like, when people talk about them, I don't know. It's weird to talk about because sitting here thinking about it, like trying to voice it almost seems not humble, and I definitely want to be humble because we're supposed to be like Christ, and Christ was humble. But my goal is to be Christ-like, and so like I want to be that guy that will give the shirt off of my back for anybody. Like, whenever somebody is talking about someone, like I guess this is a back in the old days thing where they would be like, oh, that man, that guy would give you the shirt off of his back. I want to be that guy, and I try to be as much as I possibly can be. So it's really cool because like we see that happen in verse 4, but then in verse 5, David's going to go out and he's going to be successful wherever he goes. We see the jealousy of Saul come after that. David marrying Michal. That's pretty much where we ended before we started like accelerating things, right? So, we get through like well, let's go to 19. And verse 1 of 19. And Saul spoke to Jonathan, his son, and to all his servants that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, like a good friend, right? Saul, my father, seeks to kill you. Therefore, be on your guard in the morning. Stay in a secret place and hide yourself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are. And I will speak to my father about you. And if I learn anything, I will tell you. And Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul his father, and said to him, let not the king sin against his servant David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his deeds have brought good to you. Okay. Think about it like this. If Saul has killed his thousands and David has killed his 10,000s, why is that such a bad thing for the king? I think back to like other obviously this is an account, this is not a tale, but I think back to tales of warriors and stuff where like Achilles, like if you were to take it from the movie adaptation where there is that rift between Achilles and the king, and Achilles basically is there to be a warrior, just to be a warrior. He doesn't care. And the king hates that he can't really control Achilles. And they have that rift between them. Now, imagine a healthy relationship between a warrior and a king. Okay, so yeah, I've killed my thousands. But my dude over here who is helping protect my country, like that guy, that is like the future. It'd be cool, right? but also think about it from it's a bunch of mixed feelings here, because then we also have the succession of power, because it's going to David. David is the anointed one. It's not going to Jonathan. So Jonathan could easily be in the same boat as Saul, right? Especially, like, imagine hearing all the negativity all the time from your dad. Like, why do you hang out with that boy? He's nothing but trouble. He's going to be taking over. You're not going to get this. Which we're actually going to read the verse here in a minute that says somewhat that. But, does that not bother you? We should get rid of him. Jonathan says, no, Dad. I think David is wonderful, and I'd be more than happy to be by his side. Jonathan had an amazing view of what could have been. Saul's anger and jealousy led to a lot of what could have been positive to be undone. And that's a great lesson for ourselves. And think about that, like, in our own relationships. Not just, like, from being, like, the third wheel, so to speak, in this case with Saul. But think about it from, your own place, where you might be having some jealousy issues in amongst your friends group or something, where it's starting to affect the friends group. Or perhaps maybe you have an abandonment issue where you're afraid that your friend that you're really, really close to is going to start spending time with somebody else or something. We do this to ourselves all the time. We can get into that jealousy, bitterness, whatever, and we, as humans, can ruin several friendships. And think about just life in general. We end up not talking to people that we thought were our best friends in high school. Does that hit home? Kind of does for me. Actually, it does for me, not just kind of. But I also think, like, right now, I'm very happy with, like, my friends group. I'm super blessed, and I hope you are too. And like, it's not even about quantity. Look at Jonathan and David. They had each other. I'm sure that there were other people that they hung out with or whatever, but, like, those two, that was it. Like, we don't hear about Jonathan, David, and Kenny, or Jonathan, David, and Tom, or whoever. I'm just throwing out names. But trying to jump ahead here a little bit. So Jonathan ends up talking Saul down off the ledge, and we get Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan. Saul swore, as the Lord lives, he shall not be put to death. So he got his mind changed. Okay. And Jonathan brought David to Saul. And so Jonathan plays peacemaker a lot. And let's look at the definition of peacemaker. A person who brings about peace, especially by reconciling adversaries. Describes Jonathan to a T, doesn't it? And there was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines and struck them with a great blow so that they fled before him. Again, out there doing good for the country, being a patriot. Like, something that we would say in more modern times, like for Americans. But again, we see in verse 9, then a harmful spirit from the Lord came upon Saul, and as he sat in his house with his spear in his hand, and this is one of the things that we were talking about, and David was playing the lyre, and Saul sought to pin David to the wall with his spear, but he eluded Saul, and David fled and escaped that night. there's a lot of abuse that goes on here from Saul to like everyone, and I don't think he realized it. And obviously, we're talking a lot about Saul, but it's very much like a triangle of people here. Even Michal here, before David becomes king, because, like, spoiler alert, Michal ends up hating David later on after the death of Saul and Jonathan. And I think it's because she blames David for the death of her dad and her brothers. Kind of a bummer. And she also, like, found another, because she ended up being married off again. Just to kind of, like, summarize what ends up happening with her. And she was very bitter, and it's sad. Again, one of those things that Saul affected because of David having to be on the run. David missed a lot of good in his life and missed a lot of good years with Jonathan, and not just Jonathan, but his wife Michal. Had they been the picturesque in-laws and whatnot, What if Saul would have taken things with the same viewpoint that Jonathan did? Like, man, this guy, David is good for my son. David is good for my daughter. David is good for the country. Can you imagine the benefits that would have come from that? But that's talking about what might have been. And the only reason why I bring it up that way is because we need to keep that in mind with ourselves. Like, okay, what does being negative produce? Well, negativity, right? Being negative doesn't produce positivity. Somebody may argue that, that actually, in some people, negativity can stir up. Well, I'll show them. Okay, yeah, maybe. But what if you just backed the person instead of belittling them? What if you were a friend like Jonathan? A peacemaker. Somebody that wanted to be there for their friend, for that person. Wanting to be there for them. What would that be like? Just trying to put some things into perspective as we're examining a really good friendship here. I do love, like, how whenever they try to kill David while he's with Samuel, they, like, everybody that comes just ends up prophesying. And especially, like, whenever it's Saul's turn, and he's like, well, I'll just go do it myself. And he gets there and he starts prophesying, and it's like, well, like, can you imagine, like, what was he prophesying about? Think about it, like, being Saul, and obviously we know Jesus, like, because it was prophesied, and then we get it backed up later on, that, the Messiah is going to come from David's, bloodline. What if Saul prophesied that? Like, what if that was something that was put in him whenever he came here to kill David while he was with Samuel, and then, like, he said that? Or, what if he prophesied how there were going to be many wonderful things that came out of David's bloodline? The temple being built, David being like him, so to speak, whenever it comes to kings of Jerusalem. There's a lot of what ifs, but, like, some cool things to think about. But the fact is Saul was prophesying, and that's a big deal, because, like, he wouldn't want to say that, but he's being, like, he has to say it. The admittance. And can you imagine, like, being Saul and having to say all that stuff? In 20, I'm gonna, like, read a snippet from verse 1 of chapter 20. So, David said before Jonathan, what have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin before your father, that he seeks my life? And he said to him, Far from it! You shall not die. Behold, my father does nothing either great or small without disclosing it to me. And why should my father hide this from me? It is not so. But David vowed again, saying, Your father knows well that I have found favor in your eyes, and he thinks, Do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. So he knows it would greatly sadden Jonathan. But truly as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is a step between me and death. Then Jonathan said to David, Whatever you say, I will do. David said to Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I shall not fail to sit at the table with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field till the third day at evening. If your father misses me and all that, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the clan. If he says good, it will be well with your servant. But if he is angry, then know that harm is determined by him. Therefore deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. Okay, so imagine this. You don't permit your amazing soldier to go back to home. He hasn't been back home in probably a couple years at this point. And you get told by his best friend, Jesse sent for him. His dad sent for him. He wants him to be a part of this yearly sacrifice this year. The common thought process for a regular person would be, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. He hasn't been able to go the past couple of years. I've kept him busy in wars and everything else. Or, he's been here with Mihal. Maybe Mihal goes with him to meet the family finally, because more than likely they hadn't. Like, there's a lot that makes sense to it. Okay, so we see all, we see what the thought process should be, right? But what is Saul's thought process? He gets angry and he wants to kill David, and he ends up blaming Jonathan. And it's kind of sad the way things end up going down, because David, flees, lies, eats the showbread, and it becomes a whole thing. But in 16 of Samuel 20, Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, May the Lord take vengeance on David's enemies. And Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to him, Tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty. Missing his friend. Think about those times where you don't get to see your friends for a lengthy period of time. It's a lot to it can be heavy, right? Not so much that it's a lot to go through. Maybe sometimes it is a lot to go through, because then next time you see each other, you'll have a lot to say. But they'd come up with this plan of shooting the arrows and what that sign means, and the first day in 26, we'll just read 26. Yet Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, something has happened to him. He is not clean, surely he is not clean. So there's a panic in a little bit, it seems, in Saul, but he tries to reason it within himself. Oh, he's not clean. He can't be clean. He just came back from that battle not that long ago. The days must have fallen where he's not clean, or maybe something else happened. Okay, maybe that made him not clean. He went on that hunting thing. He's not clean because blood, whatever it might be. So he justifies it, and again, his seat's empty, and Saul asks partway through 27. Saul said to Jonathan his son, Why has not the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, let me go, for our clan holds a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now, if I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. You think Saul's a little angry? Just a little bit? And so Jonathan answered Saul, his father, why should he be put to death? What has he done? But Saul, real big spear thrower guy, throws another one. So as we begin to get close to wrapping this up, there's a handful of other things that we could get to, but I really want to get to the lament and talk about the lament. And so they go through the sign and everything, and I want to read 40, I guess we'll do 41 and 42 of 1 Samuel 20. And as soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. They kissed one another and wept with one another, David weeping the most. Then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, because we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord shall be between me and you, and between my offspring and your offspring forever. And he rose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. David continues to honor this after Jonathan's passing. He finds Jonathan's closest relative and brings him into his house and gives him a good life. And he had a rough life anyways, because he was lame or crippled or something, if I remember correctly. I will pull that up at a later date for you. But so there's this Samuel. I'm scrolling forward. Let's see. Philistines reject David. David's wives are captured. Death of Saul. All right. So 2 Samuel 1, we're going to start at verse 17. And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and Jonathan his son. And he said, it should be taught to the people of Judah, behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. He said, your glory, O Israel, is slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Saul died on a mountaintop with Jonathan and his other brothers. Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. Give them no reason to celebrate. Your mountains of Gilboa, that there be no dew or rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled, the shield of Saul, not anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely, in life and in death, they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you luxuriously in scarlet, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. The saying, I loved you like a brother, is very strong. And we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. How the mighty have fallen and the weapons of war perished. Something can be said about a best friend that is like a brother or more than a brother. There's there's a whole kindred spirit thing there where you're, one, you're inseparable. Two, you just get each other. You click on a whole nother level, and you just, whenever you do it, nobody else gets you like they do. And it's such a wonderful feeling to have that kind of relationship. And David takes the high road here, because David could use that lament to, totally take another turn. Jonathan will always remain in, the history books as this wonderful guy, but Saul, no. That dude was horrible. I will strike him from the record. He could have taken his name out of the history books. Obviously, there's no way David would have been able to do that and still be a man after God's own heart. But I think that's also a part of what makes him a man after God's own heart. He turns the other cheek, doesn't he? He speaks highly of somebody who wronged him and his friend, Saul's own son. Saul wronged Jonathan here. Yet those two, even though the dad got in between them, had a wonderful friendship, and they thought highly of each other, even though they didn't get to live out old ages together. They didn't get to spend what little time they did have together up to the death of Jonathan. What if David had been there? Do you think that they would have lost that battle? Again, thinking of the what ifs, but do you think that ever crossed David's mind? What if I was there? It's hard to fight some of those what if feelings whenever you've lost a friend, whenever you deal with a death of a friend, death of a family member. We all have somebody that is a kindred spirit. I honestly think we have several throughout our lifetimes by design. Maybe it's a grandfather, maybe it's a grandmother, kid in class, somebody that's a little bit older than you, your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter. It could be a lot of things, a lot of people, co-worker, boss, brother-in-law. It could carry a lot of names. Friendship is so important, and I'm going to challenge you as we wrap this up to reach out to that person that is a good friend, that you would view as a Jonathan. You don't have to, open your feelings or whatever, because, we're men, we got calloused hands. It doesn't have to necessarily be that way, although I would kind of encourage like some sort of, positive thing of like, hey man, you've been a good friend, yada, yada, yada. But just reach out to him today. Talk to him about whatever. Bring up what you like doing, bring up what they like doing. Especially if it's something you both like doing. Just have a quick conversation with your friend today, and then thank God for that blessing. But that's pretty much what I got for you guys, because friendship is a blessing from God, and it's a wonderful one. Because friends help us get through the tough times, much like Jonathan helped David deal with Saul. With that, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, and we will catch you right here next week on the Calloused Hands podcast. Almost signed off with the Tin Roof way. Whoops. All right. See y'all later.